agendas or not. Very important process. Appreciate everybody coming. I'll tell you what, since there's some new faces, most everybody knows the commissioners and everything. Ryan, you all want to introduce yourself over off the table? Except for Mike, I think everybody knows Mike. Some of y'all kind of behind the scenes on some things.
I'm Jim. I work in the mapping GIS for the property assessor's office.
I'm Ryan. I do the mapping and addressing for 911 here in Loudon County.
Everybody knows CS as well, I'm assuming, so, and Mike.
Who's back here in the back?
Very back, why y'all in the back for?
We just,
They don't know why.
Jim Jenkins and Greg
Greg
Monte.
Jenkins with codes. Greg Monte with planning.
All right. Am I missing anybody?
I'm not doing this chair.
All right. So we're all here and accounted for with the exception of Mr. Tinker, and he had, his job duties kept him out today. So, as we get down to number 3 of the election of a chairperson for this committee, and I'll open up the floor at this time for nominations.
I'll make a motion that Mr. Collins our chairman, Ms. Bruce is our chairwoman, Susan is our secretary.
Second on the motion.
You good with all 3 at the same time? Can we do that, I guess?
Sure.
Sounds good. I got a motion and a second on that. Any discussion or questions?
Who was vice chair? Me.
Kelly, same as county commission.
There a motion nomination cease?
So moved.
Have a second on it?
Second.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All in favor of Commissioner Waller's motion, signify by saying aye.
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 Adam,
Go.
Adam made the motion.
David.
David. Chairman, it's now yours.
Okay, next up is the information from the Controller's Office and CCAS.
You got the new one? Yeah, I think it's the same thing pretty much, isn't it?
Yep. Okay, questions for Mr. Hill or Mr. Phillips?
Which is he?
He is
Mr.
Mr.
Phillips.
I'm just gonna ask that.
I thought it was an either or kind of thing, you know?
You say Mr. Hill, so people call him with problems, so you should just call him him.
And does this committee have any specific questions for Mr. Phillips before we get started? I'm sure we'll have some as we go.
I
Do we
have,
have any on the front end?
I have maybe one question to tie it both together. I know in the preparation and looking through the manual, but we're going to be experiencing some tremendous growth, it looks like, in the city of Loudon in the next 2, 3, 4 years. As an example, talking to Mayor Harris yesterday, I think we're looking at a project that could give us about 400 new beds with 3 projects. Also, Tennessee National has gone through purchase of new owners, and they're expecting somewhere around 150 new plans to be approved by the Planning Commission by the end of the year. Now, I think they have a master plan at about a $40 million budget that they're going to be working on in the future. And my thinking is, in the final summation, if we look at this plan 1, 3, or 5 years without using those numbers now, is that allowable, or should we look at projections on something like this in the future?
Well, sir, basically you have to use the numbers as they come from the census, but you can keep that in the back of your mind and work with the deviation in that area or that district, you know, working with the overall deviation, but kind of look at that area. It's you know, if it's something that, you know, you're sure it's going to grow, you can kind of keep it in the back of your mind, I think, sir.
You've answered my question. Thank you.
So as we look at these lines, then we need to, stuff that we are 99% sure is coming, we need to keep that as we do the lines, keep that in the back of our minds as far as future growth we can count on.
Yes, sir, it's a hard thing, because something might pop up somewhere else in the county that you don't know about, and it
Sure.
might throw everything out of whack, but yeah, you can keep things, you know, as long as you go, you know, work with the, you know, the established procedures, you know, laws and stuff, you can keep that in the back of your mind and kind of, you know, tweak an area to get it down on the deviation to account for future growth if you think that might happen.
How soon might we see the final numbers, not the preliminary, but the final numbers and the numbers by district?
The census is releasing them here pretty soon, within the next day or so, I think tomorrow, and together with geography, so it'll actually make some sense, and we'll have that to you just as soon as possible, probably within the next week or two.
So it won't be November 30th.
Oh, no, sir, you'll get it in the next couple of weeks, you'll have maps sent to you, they'll be printed out, next week.
Will we have the tiger maps where we'll be able to move the lines and see the populations in the lines so we know what we're doing?
Not yet, well, who's doing your mapping?
Janicula, I'm guessing.
Okay, great, yeah, we will,
And Jim, I guess.
are you gentlemen coming to the training that we're gonna have in Knoxville? We should have that on the 24th, I think.
We've not heard anything about it.
Yeah, I'll get your contact information and make sure you're there at the training. Yeah, when we get the training done, we'll, whoever is, gonna be doing the mapping, they'll have the software and the data and start looking at the lines.
How far away do you think? I mean, for us to do anything, that's what we have to have.
I'm
We
saying,
have to be able to see when we move a line what the numbers are.
yeah, don't hold me exactly to it, but roughly speaking, should get going by the 1st of September.
Okay, and for those that haven't done this, you've seen the maps that Buddy sent us out. When it's all said and done, you pull a line over, you draw a circle, you draw a square, and it'll tell you how many people's in it. And that's how we can tell when we move a line, how many people we're moving here and there and that sort of stuff. We get the numbers all day, but till we can tell in the census blocks what they are, we can't really do anything for sure, as I remember it in the last 2 times.
Yes, sir.
I'm hoping the software is a whole lot even better now than it was 10 years ago.
Well, we have 2 things. We have the software that we had last go around, which has been tweaked a little bit. It's easy to use, and then Esri has an online version that if the COVID numbers get scary and the committee wants to go to, Zoom meetings, that can be done over a meeting. Can be done remotely, as long as you have a fast, decent computer and internet connection, you can do that online.
Any further questions for Mr. Hill?
Phillips,
Not Mr. Hill.
Mr. Phillips.
Mr. Phillips, I'm sorry, I
That's
blew
quite all
that.
right, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, next up is a discussion of the preliminary county numbers. Has everybody seen the chart in your book? It shows, the preliminary numbers show 54,662 in the county. Any discussion on that for the county, not for the district yet?
And for those that are out there maybe don't have the numbers, we have seen some pretty phenomenal growth. Maybe not as much as a lot of us would have thought it would have been in some districts, but the 5th district still leads the way. We're still the biggest population, the biggest geographic, and the best district, right, 18?
That's debatable.
South of the river is even better.
Okay.
Are we gonna take up the 710 tonight?
I don't think we better vote on it tonight. I think when we get down to it, well, with its own item number 9, I think all that comes in for everybody to start thinking about.
So, I missed the part. The biggest thing we got to decide is how many, and I don't even know where the conversation of splitting 2-member districts at, but I don't think that sets well. It doesn't in my 2-member district. I don't wanna give away half my district.
Well, I'll just, for discussion purposes, I'll make a motion that we do 10 commissioners in 7 districts like we have, for discussion purposes.
Well, if we're gonna discuss it, now'd be the time. I'll give you a
And vote
second.
on it?
Give you a second
Let's
for
discuss it.
discussion.
Let's vote on it. Let's just get out of the way.
Matt's
That's
not here and that affects Matt, and we should respect him and have the discussion and vote on it later. Let him mull that over.
What if he can't be here?
Right.
I said, what if he can't be here?
That-
He'll be
that-
here
to
for
me,
the
that's
next
just a
voting
drastic-
meeting.
Because a lot of us, this is our first time in.
Discussion.
Yeah, this is
So
up for
is
discussion.
somebody here thinking we're gonna do something different than 710?
I don't know if they
Doesn't
are.
matter
I
what
can't
anybody
read
thinks,
anybody's
Matt,
mind
it
on
affects
but-
Matt too, and I think this is up for discussion, and this was talked about as a discussional purposes only meeting, and I don't think we need to push a vote on something that one of our commissioners isn't here to vote for. That affects the county.
I don't think Adam was pushing the vote. I think
No, Adam was not pushing the vote.
he was just looking for a discussion.
Adam was looking for a discussion, correct?
Well, if it helps, I did talk to Tinker today, and he said he absolutely was fine with 710, but I'll not speak for Mr. Tinker.
Well,
I mean,
I
if he wants
appreciate
to be here,
that.
that's
He can
fine,
speak for
but,
himself.
Right, well, we got a we'll go ahead here, I'm sorry.
You got a motion and a second.
now discussion.
Now discuss it.
I think, in just my opinion, I think we talk about it and put it on the agenda for the next time instead of vote tonight. That's just where I'm at with it.
Talk about what?
Well, then you gotta, do we wanna, look at the items that we gotta decide if we're gonna keep 10 commissioners, add or subtract. We can't subtract, because everybody's planning on running again. We wanna go 7 districts, 8 districts, 9 districts, 10 districts, 11 districts. Do we want to, it's stuff like that we'd have to have in the record, that we have to have specific.
For the record, I'd like to see this be 10 districts, 10 commissioners, 7 districts.
That may be really how it ends up, but I don't know if jumping in and voting on tonight's.
I'm gonna ask Susan.
What? We're trying to say who seconded the motion or whatever.
I seconded Adam's motion.
Adam made it,
Okay.
it was seconded by,
When every person that gets moved is unhappy. I can go ahead and tell you, having done this before, David, Commissioner Duff will tell you real quick, anybody gets moved, they're unhappy. Nobody likes to move districts.
I've moved twice.
The second part of it is what's involved. Everybody that gets moved has to be notified. That comes down to Ms. Harrison's office. She has to notify everybody that moves. So to meet our, optimum numbers, to try to get our target numbers as close as possible and move the fewest amount of people should probably be our goal right on the front end. And when you're talking about splitting 2-member districts, again, I don't even
And again,
understand.
I'm just saying we have to put it up in our minutes for a vote. It may not happen, we may end up with 15 districts before it's all over. I
Well,
hope not,
I'm
but-
like that, I like 7-10. I don't see any advantage to changing 7-10. And my vote will be 7-10.
Let's say we go to 8, 11, or whatever. Let's just say what's that gonna do for your office?
It'd be a big change. It depends on, it depends on if you go to 11 commissioners, it depends on if you stay at 10 or 11 commissioners, do 10 districts, 11 districts. You know, anything you do, if something has to be renamed instead of like district, say 1, if you split it in half. Okay, there's a district 1, but what are we gonna call district 1A? Everybody in 1A now has to get a new card that says you are now in 1A. That's be 2,000 people.
So if you go 8, 11, and you have to move the population around, you're gonna have to mail out basically every registered voter a card.
Yeah, it's a new, it's a new.
Because you're moving all to balance it out, you'll end up sending that out to every registered voter.
And we could go, if commission chose, we could go 15 districts and 15 commissioners.
All that it affects, you have to send one out to
That'd be
everybody.
mass chaos, but.
But then keep in mind too, if you do add a commissioner, you would need to be adding a school board member also to keep those boundary lines in line with each other.
We've got Commissioner Brewster, Commissioner Mears, Commissioner Hurley, Commissioner Duff, myself.
With the largest amount.
That's our 2 district commissioners.
Well, when you split, when it says in the book about how to do the numbers and things, you have to look at those too. So looking at the total number we would have, for us to be 2, we would look at approximately, I think it was 14,000.
Do you all want to split your district?
I'll be very honest, and Harold, I think you and Van would back me up on this. I think the less we do to involve people in moves, it's going to be better off and more accepted. If we had to do a massive mail out of 38,000, that'd run to, what, $50,000-$60,000?
And nobody get me wrong, I'm not pushing to split any districts, I'm just saying,
I know.
Well,
we've
I'm
gotta have it in the minutes.
trying to get to the
Hey,
point,
it's not-
do
we
the
need to throw
districts with
everything out
multiple
there to
commissioners,
discuss
do we want to split? Commissioner Duff and I do not want to split the 5th district.
No,
I asked Commissioner Mears and Brewster, do they want to split their district?
no.
I don't wanna split my district.
So that's a vast majority right there. I mean, that's,
Switch. I had a question for Ned. Ned, if we split those districts, we're gonna have to align a commissioner and a school board member in each set, correct? Because we can't out precinct, so more or less you're gonna have to, because our lines align with each other. School board and, school board equals, county commissioners.
Yes, ma'am, if one is affected by the other, it'll have to be aligned as well.
Yeah, so if we had a 4, a 2 commission district, a 2 school board member district, then we're gonna have to divide and like, say, Mr. Mears would say per se have Scott, and then we'd have to line, Mr.
writings.
Ridings with Kelly. So the lines may not be the beautiful, smart, easy lines to do,
No,
but you're gonna
because
have to line them together.
And then we gotta look
Because
at planning
where
commission, I don't know if there's,
David lives and I live, there'd be kinda no.
Yeah.
then planning commission may have to increase just to be fair, so.
I
I
think,
think that's something that we can all agree on right now.
I think we can all agree we're not gonna split the two-member districts.
Correct.
Does everybody, I mean, we've got a motion and a second right now for the two items. If you'll withdraw that, I'll withdraw my second.
Well, what would be the advantage if we had to split the district?
I don't know any, except a lot of
To help fund the
pieces of
postal
paper
service
moved
a
out.
little bit.
Yeah.
What?
Fund the postal service a little.
I would say in the long run, if you were to, and I anticipate in the next decade, Loudon County will grow enough to have their own state representatives. You have to have a certain amount of people per county to have one state representative and not split two counties. So we're close. And within the next decade, I am fully cautious of that as we continue our growth plan. Eventually, we will end up with a larger county with one singular state representative, one representation, and that comes with changing some district lines along the way. But we have a decade to prepare for that financially, for the mail-outs and the conversations. I don't think that we've grown enough yet to be splitting up our shared districts. I just don't think today's the day to do that. I think that by this next time in 10 years, we will probably have that discussion at that point. But that gives us a decade to prepare for that line draw, because we have to redraw it anyway for a new state house rep. So that will happen in a decade.
And again, I'm not advocating for or against, I'm just saying, is it
Right.
something we wanna vote on tonight? I mean, I love the discussion, we know down, we know the pros and the cons, but is it something we wanna vote on tonight or not?
Absolutely, that's the biggest thing we've got to deal with, but like I say, if we wanna, if we're there, we're done, and we're not gonna split the district, so I think that could take a vote by itself. If he withdraws, I'll
I'll
withdraw.
withdraw my motion.
I'll withdraw
for
my
both.
second, and I'll make a motion that we're gonna have 7 districts by itself. No
I'll second
split.
that. You got a second from Commissioner Satterfield.
All right,
Okay, any further discussion on that? I have one for Mr. Phillips. How solid do you think those numbers are? Can they vary from the preliminary?
Well, I won't lie to you, sir, we're hoping that they will be close to what has been projected, but with COVID and the whole, trouble in canvassing, they could be off. I'm not sure, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Sir.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Let's vote.
I do have one thing, before we vote on this. Do we need to vote on it tonight, or do we need to wait and our next meeting to vote on that? Simply because we would have, he's saying we might have those numbers back.
do you think any numbers we got would change the splits of the district? I mean, nothing's gonna change that. The next topic we'll discuss, whether or not we're having 10 commissioners, or 11, or 12, or 40, that could be affected by alternating numbers. But it won't matter if the numbers are off by 10,000, we're still not gonna wanna split our multi-districts.
Yeah, I would say, I would still like to see the whole numbers before we make any final decisions, but I think that with a 10,000 person ad, it won't change them that much this time. But I would still personally like to wait to see the final numbers, but it's up to everybody else too, so.
We have a motion and a second, so.
Yeah.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
No.
2.
Ms. Hurley, let me ask you a question. You're talking about the state stuff. Do you think there's any chance this time the 32nd district will leave Loudon County?
We could only hope, but no.
Oh, I wish it would.
I do too. I do
There's
too.
talk, there's talk.
We're on that same page. Well, I'm with you on that one. I've been with you on that one.
Isn't there
I
talk?
tried to do it 10 years ago.
Isn't there talk in Nashville now this time? Because they don't have to do theirs till, I mean, they put the extra year of
Yeah, they've
redistricting.
got
We've
got
all
a little
got
extra.
it.
Yeah.
All they want it done is for by August, so they've got a lot of time. But I'm hearing that there's talk 32nd may stay in Rome County.
Well, Roane County only grew by 1,000 people, so we'll see. They're gonna desperately need somebody, and Ron Travis on the other side of that, and Ray County's pushing hard to keep his district together. So if he's not willing to take on more Roane County, and they're not willing to have Ron Travis take on more of that, then we're gonna be stuck with with Roane County for a while. We'll see what happens.
That figures.
I tried that 10 years ago, man. Me and Matlock tried it.
Yeah.
Didn't work.
Buddy, can I verify was you the other no, or was it Mr. Satterfield?
Me.
Okay.
Yeah. And no,
It's,
I just think it's early to vote.
Julia and Buddy were the no's. The rest were ayes. Motion carries.
So the next question, the only other big question we have till line division time comes, is the number of commissioners. And that's gonna be based on our numbers on our sheets right here. We can see the variations. I think the argument is very comfortable here. Till we do know the real numbers, there's no need to vote on this one yet. However, I don't think anything's gonna change. I think we're gonna stay at 10 commissioners is what I think.
At what point in population numbers do you say, well, at this number, we need to add another commissioner?
Well, it says in there, you take the total and you divide by the commissioners, and that gives you an approximate, so.
I mean, what is the,
What, the deviation, is there a fixed amount? Is there a percentage we can bring
Yes.
over or under? Does anybody care?
Yeah, they care.
Well, sir,
Dude.
10% is kind of the rule of thumb. There's nothing set in law as far as overall deviation.
What I thought?
I'd have to look at the manual again on like deviations within the, the districts themselves. But overall, 10% is what is recommended. Under is better, but, y'all can approve whatever you want to. It's whether to be contested or not.
Who can contest?
I'll have to get back to you on that.
Okay.
Just,
Would the comptroller's office, I mean, if we had one district with 38,000 people and one district with 100 people, who would contest that? Would the comptroller's office step in on that one?
Probably the election folks might have an issue.
And who's election folks? Locals?
No, state.
State election, okay.
I mean, don't hold me to that, but, that's basically what. the
Right,
whole
and
thing's
of course, we're never gonna be that far off. I hear you use the number 10%, which makes me kinda get a little bit excited because I'm not sure, without putting my glasses on, we're probably not 10% deviated on any district right now, are we?
No, and if you average it out, each district commissioner, if you even split districts, is carrying about 4,800 people as it sits. And I wouldn't want to double that before you added somebody, but maybe somewhere in between. So if each district, say, for example, grew to 6,500 per commissioner, that middle ground between the 4,500 and the 9,000, you may want to consider it at that point.
Looking at it real quick, Van, I don't see anybody that's beyond the
There's-
10%.
That's the first time I've heard that 10% number, and that's,
We like that number.
no, you just give me
That's
some.
easy to work with.
well, that was the number one, before we sat here, we're talking about adding commissioners. I was just looking at it, not knowing that maybe the 10% was the unwritten part, but I didn't see any numbers here that jumped out at me and said,
No.
oh, we need to add commissioners there and there and there. They all look pretty static to me.
5th district, 5th, 7th, and
First is high, but not.
2nd, 5th, and 7th are just slightly over. Everybody else is under. The logic behind all of this is one person, one vote. That's if you read Susan's book, I just got scolded for not reading. That's where it starts out, is one person, one vote. So right off the bat, if you're under, you're already you're better than one person, one vote. If you're over, you're a little over one person, one vote. So those 3 districts that are over would be the ones, if any, we have to concentrate on. But they're so minor. I don't know how much effort we put into moving anything to just pick up 100 here or move 100 there. I mean, I have a section that I would really like to have out of the field.
I think that, to David's point, in specific areas of growth, because we are gonna see in the next decade, his and her district over here, I mean, Loudon City is gonna, it's not gonna, I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and guarantee anything of over a 10% variation, but there may be some open land that they may need to move into their district that may not be developed yet, that may need to move out to somebody. Like, there needs to be a possibility of that conversation of, hey, we know for a fact this subdivision that's got this many possible homes is going into that district, so we may need to move something over that way a little bit, so that way there's not a 500-person deviation within 2 years instead of the 10-year wait that
Right.
out. Does
I'm
that
gonna
make
lean
sense?
back to Mr. Hill, Harris, Phillips, or whatever his name is back
Mr.
here.
Phillips,
What he said was, you make your decision on what you have today. There's no way to predict what'll be in 2 or 5 or 10 years, and that's why we do it every 10 years, is because it's gonna change. So we'll make our decisions based on what we know is today.
Do we, should we not enter any of the planned growth into the numbers? Cause I know at Gatlinburg, somebody said, look at the planned growth and kinda use some of that as a direction as well. But you're saying,
Well, sir, no, how y'all want to decide to do this, as long as it's within the guidelines, and state and federal law is, how you want to do it. That's just another tool to keep in your hip pocket if you wanna look at the projected growth and plans and things like that. It's a decision that you all have to make.
That's the reason that I brought this.
Does the state and federal government do that when they assign representatives and senators? They look at the projected growth and dole them out, or they do it when the census numbers comes in and that's what you've got until the next census?
I can't speak for them, sir, but I would expect they would mainly look at the numbers.
that's what
I give reference to the manual that we were given last week, and if you look at pages 11 through 17, it talks about the COBRA model and the voting tabulation districts. We need to have firm districts, because if you go back and reference on court cases, in 1964, Westbury versus Sanders, it gives us a pretty distinct, or it gives us a direction in what we should do, having positive numbers.
Yes, sir.
So we've had the foundation laid.
The 10% deviation I was talking about is overall deviation, and it is calculated from the deviation per district. Now, the software will show you what your target number and how close you are to it, and you can get, pretty close to what deviation you want, and get it overall, below 10 or whatever you want. It'll show what you need to do.
so you said cumulative, so we can't have 7 districts, all of them 9% off. It's a cumulative.
Yes, sir, it's figured, the deviation per district is figured into the overall deviation, that's where the 10% is spoken about.
Okay.
I don't see what the numbers.
In what most districts, what most county wanna do, the maximum number of commissioners you can have in a district is 3. So generally, when growth comes, what you'll hear a lot of people say, well, let's add another commissioner, let's go from 2 to 3. 3 is the max you can have, 24, 25 commissioners max you can have. So the conversation of what we should or shouldn't do, I think I'll go back to Julia Hurley. Another 10 years from now, I think things will look different than they do today. But right now, the districts, if you look at the numbers, except for 3rd and 4th, the growth numbers are pretty consistent across the board. Everybody's kind of growing together. 1st, 2nd, 5th.
I think I would just be a little cautious, not even cautious is not even the right word. I don't even know what word I'm trying to go for there, of the growth plan, right? Whether it's Loudon City incorporating of who their representative is and who they want to be contacted to. So again, maybe anything that pushes up against the current line that may possibly be redistricted into Greenback City or Loudon City have some consideration